Hello and welcome back to another edition of Born to Sell. I'm your host, Adil Hussain. Today's guest is someone whose journey I've had the personal privilege to watch from the very beginning. So Luke Hayden, a graduate who stumbled into the world of sales and never looked back. I've seen him grow from a business development representative into a confident, capable sales professional with serious momentum. So in this episode, Luke breaks down how he got started, what he learned early on, and the moments that shaped his path. Luke, welcome to the show.
Hi, Adil. It's great to see you, and thanks for having me.
I think that deserves a round of applause. Look, Luke, it's certainly been a while since we've caught up, but again, I've always been impressed by you and your story to date. And I want to sort of give the podcast listeners, the watchers, wherever they are in the world, just a glimpse into how you actually got started in the world of professional selling. So if we just take it back, in fact, even your first sort of sales job, if we go back to university, you went to university, right?
I did.
Excellent. And what did you study?
I studied business management at the University of Portsmouth.
Okay. I can see how business management would help you in the world of sales. I was just reading, just off the cuff, I was reading a statistic earlier. So according to the UK's Higher Education Statistic Agency, around 46% of UK graduates work in roles not necessarily directly related to their degree subject. And this figure actually comes from graduates themselves based on their own assessment, based on their current jobs, whether they're linked to what they actually studied. So without sort of digressing just at the beginning of the podcast, I think based on where we are in the UK, people paying, I don't know, 10, 20, 30, 40K, whatever it looks like these days for university, I guess should potentially look at it in terms of a return on investment. If it actually does make sense going into uni in the first place, but that's another conversation, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, look, business management doesn't really take you down a single path. It's quite a vague degree, really. I think it more taught you about kind of critical thinking skills than kind of coming out with a particular set of skills that puts you down a path. I'm someone that was always, since I've been very young, I've always been interested in wanting to be involved in running a business, growing a business, and that's, business management was a fairly simple choice like that. But I can't say that it taught me, something specific that now I sit here in the job that I'm doing now and go, I've lots of this kind of skills has come from my time at university, but it was a great life experience nonetheless.
Yeah, no, I'd second that. I think I had a good time at university as well. And it's not always the job or your career at hand. I think it's the life experience of discipline as well. So Luke, take us back to day one. Fast forward, you graduated at University of Portsmouth. What was going through your mind when you first stepped into your sales role? Was that a deliberate decision or you sort of stumbled across it?
It was a deliberate decision, mainly because, as I say, I've always been interested since a very young age in business and understanding how business has grown and scaled, and quite simply that the fastest way up the corporate ladder to those senior roles within a business where you are making the decisions on how do you move a business forwards, the fastest way to get there, from the advice that I received, is proving your hand in sales and honing your sales. Because if you can sell yourself, then you can get to those senior positions where you'll then have the type of that I'm looking for within in my career in a business.
So based on the answer, I got that it was actually a deliberate decision. Sales is something you actually did wanted to sort of start a career in. I guess not having experience before you jumped into sales, those early days, what would you say was the biggest shock or the biggest learning curve in the first few weeks, and how did you handle that in your first role?
I think it was, most certainly the getting over the hurdle of speaking to people on the phone that didn't necessarily want to speak to you, and trying to open up a conversation about a product that might have been of interest to their role, but not necessarily they want to talk about there and then. I think, I joined the company I was in as a group of 10 graduates, I think it was at the time, all starting out in their first job after university, no one with any real sales experience. And I think getting over the fear of the phones, like pretty much anyone in their sales career. Was the first kind of shock to the system, but an important step to get over in terms of building that confidence of being someone in sales.
It's funny you say that. The phone still strikes fear in the hearts of the most seasoned sales professionals. I said that to my last podcast guest. It's the good old telephone. But I've heard from many gurus throughout the ages, through my career, is that if you master the telephone, you will never ever be broke. And it's one of those tools that I think is still the king of prospecting. Nothing beats. You can send emails all day long. You've got social selling. Nothing cuts through all that digital noise quicker than genuine phone call, where you can have tonality, expression, have a two-way conversation. You can get to a no a lot quicker, a yes a lot quicker. I remember when I was working for an organization, I had one business development rep flooding emails into a particular pharmaceutical account. And, this was at the times of COVID. And I went through the CRM and I just saw dozens of emails just being fired out to a couple of stakeholders within this pharmaceutical organization. So I pulled this rep aside and I said, what did you learn from this outreach that you've been doing? What did you learn from the account? What intel did you gather? And then they looked at me quite perplexed, like, I said, well, what good is all this activity if we're not learning anything about the account? And this is where the phone, you talked about phone fear. People were very comfortable just pumping out emails, but they were too scared to pick up the phone to get to a yes or no, or gather some intel that could be meaningful for us to not have to send so many emails, But yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from. And so early on in your journey, what would you say was the specific moment where you thought, you know what, okay, I can actually do this. I can be good at this.
It was probably potentially feedback from the account executives that I was feeding leads into as a business development representative. That I think probably, I can't remember the exact calls, but the first couple of times you managed to pick up the phone and actually sort of break down the guard of the person that you'd phoned and open up to have a conversation. And you're trying to go through your script or whatever, the kind of bullet points you're trying to get through, the kind of information, whatever spin method or whatever methodology we were using at the time. And you actually managed to come off the call and go, right, well, I actually managed to open up the conversation, get their guard down, get 5-10 minutes of their time and structure the call and get the information out of it that I wanted, pass it over to the account exec who said, done a good job. And I think the first time, my first lead moved to stage 2, or I can't remember the exact stages that we had at that company, but the first time we've gone, okay, I did that. I opened up the conversation. I got the information that I needed to pass it to the account executive, and now this is a live pipeline opportunity. Still doesn't mean the next time you pick up your phone, you're exactly excited to pick up the phone again, but it does in the back of my mind. It's like, well, I've done it once, so why can't I do it again?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think once you conquer that phone fear, it's like the fear disappears, right? And so you just focus on having a conversation, a human interaction with somebody. And I think that pays dividends in terms of people see that through your tonality and your expression and the conversation, the words you use and the way you guide them. One thing that I've always guided a lot of the people that I've worked with under my coaching, and that is, the more you push, the more the prospect pulls away. They can almost sense that this person is needy, he needs a bit of commission, or he needs a score or a deal or what have you. And regardless of whether they want your product or not, it just feels very icky. And I'm like, I don't like that. And so when you come from a position of serving and diagnosing and prescribing, it's like going to the doctors, right? So you diagnose, you're looking for a problem, and they've got their cards up, their defenses up, and they're like, I don't want to give you that information. But when you start coming across as an expert in your domain, somebody who knows what they're talking about, all of a sudden the resistance drops. It's like going to the doctor, right? You go to the doctor and, they don't just put a bandage on your knee the minute you walk in, right? They'll ask you questions, what's the issue? And so, well, actually it's my back. Well, how long have you had this back pain? X amount of time. Okay, well, what have you tried? What worked? What didn't work? Based on what you described, I think that you have this problem, and here's a solution for it. And it's the same way in sales. We've got 2 ears, we've got one mouth, and we should use that in that proportion where we listen, we diagnose, and then we prescribe products and solutions to our prospects.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's as you say, it's being able to speak on the phone particularly, and not come across as though you're almost surprised that they want to have a conversation, or you're nervous, and you can communicate confidently. And I think that the main thing is really being able to speak with passion in your voice. I think a lot of, let's be honest, when I started in BD, it's reaching out to the finance world, to CFOs, to finance directors, who I still try to get through to today, and they get cold called probably way too much than they would like to, and it makes a difference for them to actually hear someone who is speaking with confidence, clarity, and I'd say most important, I think, passion. Because if you're just reading from a script and you're reading nervously, no one wants to listen to that, and no one's going to open up the conversation, really.
Yeah, I'd echo that. And I think, the nerves, when nerves start jangling, your voice starts breaking, they pick up on it straight away, regardless of whether they need your solution or not. It just becomes very undesirable to be working with somebody who has that trait. And it's quite natural. It's like going to a shop and you're saying, "Oh, hi, can you guide me on this particular product?" And and they're just reading off the back of a packet. Well, that doesn't instill any confidence in me to buy from you. It's like the blind guiding the blind, right? So confidence and being an expert in your domain, absolutely. And so Luke, in the early days of your career, can you remember a specific time when I pushed you or challenged you or encouraged you to in a way that helped you grow?
Yeah, I think Adil, when you came in as our business development manager, and I think really sat me down and took me through the process of, okay, I want to reach these accounts, or I'm going to go after this kind of set of accounts, and help me to come up with a strategy of, I'm not just going to send a load of emails. It's going to be, a structure. It's going to be email on this day. I'm going to phone them on this day. I'm going to email them on this day, and trying to link that process together, to get some sort of response, whether that be through email or through the phone. And I think setting us really, the targets of, we need to hit this many calls a day or a week or whatever it might be, and then that forces you, and more, having, as our manager going, I'm going to hold you accountable to these numbers and these targets as I'm setting you, which means that using the systems and the tools that we had, there was no real hiding from actually having to do what you were told, even though every time we're working towards those weekly goals that we had in terms of output, was outside your comfort zone every day and every minute of what you were doing. But every day you did it, it become a little bit easier, and you become a little more confident at following that process. And then once you saw the results from following a process, that just kind of helps you do the whole cycle even better, I'd say.
Yeah, no, spot on. And I think, just to tag off on the back of that, is, we talk about KPIs and metrics and, volumes and number of this and number of that, be it emails, calls, or what have you. I think, from my perspective, I've never been into vanity metrics. So you go into some organizations, or, somebody who may be an entrepreneur may do it within their business. I want to see X amount of dials or X amount of emails or calls or what have you. I'm more interested in effectiveness, because in the modern day of selling, it's very easy to push a button and pump out hundreds of emails. It's quite easy to automate outreach via LinkedIn and all these sort of clever things that you can do with the technology today. But I'm more interested, I've always been interested in effectiveness, like writing thought-provoking, delicious copy that evokes emotion and gets somebody to sort of sit up and say, I like the sound of that, or I like how that was communicated to me. This is worth a conversation. It's certainly worth exploring, looking into it further. Or a conversation that sort of challenges the prospect's beliefs, because they say, well, this is the way to do it. And you come in with a fresh perspective and say, hey, there's a quicker, better, faster, cheaper way of doing it longer term if you take this route. So now you become someone who isn't just calling for the sake of calling, but you're providing insights. So insight-based selling. You're giving them information that they needed to know, which they can't necessarily get off, the back of a packet, or or a document online. You're speaking from experience. But yeah, KPIs and metrics are certainly important, but I think in the right quantities. I've always been about driving efficiency and obviously outcomes. If the outcomes are there, great. If the outcomes are not there, then I start peeling back the onion skin to understand, okay, well, how many calls did you make, or how many emails did you send? And then I start going further to understand how effective were these emails or how effective were these calls. So I sort of reverse engineer it that way. So Luke, what is one lesson that from our time working together that sticks with you today? It could be, I don't know, selling on the phone. It could be, I don't know, LinkedIn strategy, or it could be anything. What's one thing? It could be a piece of advice. What was one thing that, we worked together on that you say still sticks with you today that you use?
I think I've probably got two answers that spring to mind with that, Adil. I think when you come in, I think definitely the LinkedIn piece and how to use LinkedIn for your advantage in terms of the benefit of the platform, in terms of you could have a photo of yourself, have a nice smiling photo where people, you can humanize your outreach essentially, and being able to link that with the email and phone outreach that we were doing. I think, also, I always remember you giving me the confidence to kind of push the boat a little bit in terms of come up with a different subject line or a different, pattern interrupt, I think, as you would call it, to, because they get, these CFOs that we're trying to reach, they're getting 1,000 LinkedIn messages, 1,000 emails. What can you do slightly differently, and have the confidence to do something differently, because you'd rather try something different and it fail than try and do the same thing over and over. And I think what you just spoke about there in terms of avoiding being a busy fool. I think every sales rep out there knows that with these systems you can skew your numbers in your favor slightly in terms of number of calls and stuff, but that doesn't necessarily lead to any outcomes. But being more prepared. So look, if I've only got 10 numbers that I'm going to call, but for each of those 10 numbers, I've actually done a bit of research, understood the company, understood the prospect, understood what will actually be of interest to that particular person I'm trying to reach. So that if you do actually get on a call with them, you are more likely to get an outcome from that call because you are prepared, rather than just trying to dial a load of different numbers and just have a very kind of generic approach to each call. Yeah, which, as I say, is that kind of leads down that kind of busy fool route, which only occasionally can you get lucky enough that it might work.
So yeah, no, I'd say, Luke, I'd certainly echo that. I think that the whole busy fool piece is, the KPIs, the metrics, yes, they are important. Yes, it's something that you need to be tracking if you're a company or a one-man band or working as part of a sales team. But obviously, you want to be tracking effectiveness to ensure that you're getting the results and the outcomes, desired. Okay, so final question on the sort of coaching experience piece. You've had lots of people backing you. You've had myself, you had some other people within a particular organization we worked with in the past. How did having people in your corner, be it myself or anybody else, whether it's through coaching or feedback or belief, how did that shape those early days and months early on in your career?
Massively, really. I would immediately kind of relate this to the sports world, and I've someone that's played a lot of football and sports since a very young age, and on the football pitch, having a manager that believes in you and trusts you, and a team that looks to you to score the goals or to drive the team forwards, fills you with the confidence that I can do this. And conversely, I'm sure I've been on the side where you are with a manager that doesn't believe you in you so much, and that affects your own confidence, and everything kind of negatively affects it from there. So when obviously, Adil, you were very much in my corner, always pushed for me, internally where we worked and for the advancement of my career. That makes you believe, well, look, these people above me that I look up to and I'm trying to learn from, believe in me, and are telling me that I've got the skills, and they think I can go to that next level. That just makes you want to work more, want to work harder, and really kind of have that motivation to do all those bits that aren't so fun that you need to do to be successful in something like a business development role. So I think even from our early conversations of, me telling you what my ambitions were at that company at that time and for my, wider career, and you telling me from what you'd seen from me, even from an early stage, you felt like I had the tools from someone like yourself who had managed people, young men in my position at companies before the one that we worked at. That from your experience, you believe that I had the skills to, achieve what I was looking to achieve. That is just, invaluable to any person in any walk of life, to have people above you believing in you, rooting for you, and even when things aren't going so well, they're still backing you in your corner, and that just gives you the motivation to keep going and to work hard, because you want to work for people that believe in you.
No, absolutely. I think when you have your peers believing in you, it's a huge thing. Just reflecting back in the earlier stages of my career, I think having a coach or a mentor is really, really important, in the infancy of your career. I'll name him. I had somebody called Malcolm Ramsey. Fantastic guy, absolute beast when it came to selling. God rest his soul, he's no longer with us, but he was my mentor. He's somebody who took me under his wing, showed me the way, guided me. He provided me a platform. And one of my complaints to him was like, Malcolm, I believe I've got the skill sets, I've got the tools, but I need a platform to perform. And so he provided me with a fantastic opportunity. My boss at the time had gone on a sabbatical for about 3 or 4 months. And I took the reins. I covered my boss. I was running with the team. We were selling through the distribution channel. So IT and telecoms equipment at the time. We did so well. When my boss came back, he no longer had a job. He had to get moved on to something else within that same business. But that's the power of having somebody who believes in you and gives you that platform to say, you know what, you've got it. And with a bit of guidance and mentorship, you can go a long way. So that's something I've always been sort of driven by and passionate, and I like giving it back, to young, hungry, ambitious individuals, particularly when they come out of university and they're just looking for that bit of guidance and a stepping stone. I love working with folks like that. And so when you look back at yourself, we're sort of going into the phase of transformation. And when you sort of first started, how different do you see yourself today from the version of what you were back then? How do you see yourself evolve now?
I think, certainly that kind of innate confidence in myself. I'm still got a lot of things to achieve in my career and got a lot of things to learn and a long way to go. But, from those early days of when we first started to work together, what is it, sort of, 5, 6 years ago now, the business that I'm in now requires me to do kind of business development across multiple companies, and having the ability to speak, in a more concise manner and understand how to get people's attention, to open the door to the conversation that you want. The ability to think through, see it from the others, the other person's viewpoint of, well, what if I was in their shoes and I was speaking, and this person's speaking to me, what is actually of interest to me? It's not me as the the salesperson as such. It's not what I want to speak about. It's what do they want to speak about, and understanding that way of thinking is so important for any salesperson, no matter what you're trying to discuss. Trying to make it not about yourself, but about the prospect or the person you're trying to open up a conversation with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's always about the prospect. And I feel that the ones who focus on the outcomes, on delivering the outcomes for the prospect, are the ones that usually win the deals. Self-serving language like us and we and market leaders, and we've got a history of doing X, Y, Z. It's nice, but it's very fluffy. It doesn't serve the customer. They don't care. They just want an answer to their problems. And if they come across somebody who is confident, competent, and good at what they do, be a trusted advisor or an expert in their domain, and truly understand their world, the customer's world, you're more likely to win that deal. And so selling is it also comes with an experience. If you provide an experience for the customer, which is above and beyond and different from what else is out there, they're more likely to be inclined to sign with you, is what I
Yeah,
find.
I think it's also, understanding the way that you communicate, the way that how you make someone feel in terms of, as I say, speaking with passion, the way you hold yourself, speaking more slowly and more clearly, the way you dress, as I say, the way you present yourself. These are all just important things, whether you like it or not, that lead to success in business development and sales and opening up conversations. And so I think definitely from when you first start understanding these small things that anyone can do, they don't require any skill, any intelligence to do, really, but nailing those small things go a long way to developing relationships with people, which is ultimately what sales is about. People buy from people, and so understanding, how these things that might seem small or ineffective or not important when you're first starting out in sales, you realize those are sometimes the most important things. Once you get a bit of experience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just off the back of that, if we talk about the experience that we deliver to a customer, just think in the world of retail, for example, have you been to an Apple store? Any Apple store?
I have.
And I'm not advocating Apple over Samsung or anything like that, but I'm just talking about the experience. It's a very different experience, right? You walk into an Apple shop and it's very light, it's very airy. Somebody standing at the door nods at you as you walk in. Now, all the devices are on display, all right? So you get to interact with everything that's out there, all their products on display, be it the iPod type of music things, the iPads, the phones, and all their gadgets. So you get to interact. It's very airy, it's very spacious. And when you're looking to purchase something, somebody comes over to you, advises you, guides you, and when you're ready to pay, they have the device, there you go, bing, you pay then and there. They bag it up for you and off you go. As you walk out, somebody smiles and nods at you as you walk out. It's a very different experience from walking into any other shop. You say, "Excuse me, can I have some help, please?" No, get lost. Somebody on shop floor or any other sort of shop where you got security following you around or people bugging you every 2 minutes. Can I help you? Is there anything you're looking for? It's a different experience. So they've really nailed that whole experience piece in terms of how to get customers excited and feel comfortable about making a purchase. It's a flawless experience. Anyhow, so I digress, but I just thought I'd share that. Were you going to say anything off the back of that?
Oh, I see. Well, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point that you make because, I hadn't really thought about this until you just mentioned it then. But I guess you go into an Apple store and what I said earlier about passion and people want to, whether you're buying an iPhone or whether you're, I don't know, buying a paperclip, you want the person that is the salesperson to act like they want to be there and I say kind of speak with passion and kind of enjoyment also. And thinking back to the last time I was in an Apple store, yes, you can tell every time you ask an Apple employee for some direction, it just seems like they're happy to be there and they're passionate in what they're talking to you about, whether it's an iPhone or any other kind of product. And so, yeah, I think that definitely improves the overall experience. And as you say, it's nothing worse than walking into any store where the salesperson's coming to talk to you because they feel like they have to, and you can tell they don't want to be there, and then that makes you not want to be there. And even if you wanted to buy what you came in for, you might not want to buy it so much once that salesperson started talking to you.
Exactly that. And I don't want to keep latching onto retail, the poor guys. It's not anything against retail, but sales as a whole, be it software, which is what we're affiliated with, or any other industry that you're selling into. But this is probably one of the reasons why e-commerce has revolutionized the way we buy, the way we purchase. You buy something that's in stock, your shade of color or flavor or whatever it is, the next morning it's delivered. In some cases, you can get it the same day or that same evening. But the experience, as you said, is when you walk into in a shop. I don't like going shopping. My wife loves shopping. I don't like going shopping because you can spend 20 minutes looking at a shirt, you know, or some smart slacks or trousers or a suit or what have you, only to find out it's not in stock, or they don't have it in this color, or they have it but it's not in this size. And there's a queue, there's one person on the till, the 20 people queuing up. The whole experience just seems quite naff, and I've seen it a number of times. And you're being served by folks who don't necessarily want to serve you, and then it makes you wonder, why do I want to spend my money in this way in this shop? And so the whole thing around the experience of delivering a quality end-to-end experience is paramount, to winning. It's no secret why companies like Apple have people queuing outside, intents for the launch of a new phone. It's insane, but people are doing that because they've created that experience. Not only is it a fantastic product, of course, but they've created an experience where people are so bought into the brand, the experience, and it's desirable to buy from them. And so, sales has to be delicious. And in our world, be it fantastic copy, sending great voicemails, great voice notes, great videos, at every juncture and every interaction, from picking up the phone, having that initial call with a prospect, to sending them the first email, firing that across, to getting a solution engineer involved, to the salesperson, the AE running that whole cycle. That whole experience has to be flawless. And it's normally those companies that win those deals. Excellent. So I know I digressed a bit, and sort of I love the flow in the conversation we're having. But how would you say, Luke, based on what you've done so far, you've achieved some fantastic things. How has sales changed your life outside of work? Your confidence, your mindset, your belief in what's possible?
I think the main thing sales teaches you is how to communicate, confidently, and build relationships with people. So I think if I look at life outside of work, it's the confidence to go into any situation, whether you're, doing a new gym class or doing any kind of new experience where probably when you're a lot younger, you're worried about the thought of having to be on your own and with a lot of people that you don't know. But I think it's mainly now feeling like you go into any situation, whatever that might be, anywhere in the world with people that you don't know, and trust that you can form relationships and enjoy meeting new people. I think because you have the confidence in yourself to meet new people, it's not such a scary experience, I guess. Putting yourself in those situations with people that you don't know.
No, I entirely agree. And again, just following your journey, you've grown a lot. I remember from when you first walked into the door to where you currently are now. You're doing some fantastic things. Hats off to you. But what part of your growth, not necessarily skills, but it could be skills, but what part of your growth to date would you say that you're most proud of?
I don't know about being proud of things. I guess still got a long way to go in a lot of ways. But one thing that I'm in the role that I've been at this company I'm at now for a few years is probably two aspects. Probably I'm starting to do a lot more kind of public speaking, and public speaking particularly in front of crowds that are various senior executives in the industries, the sports industry and other industries that my company works in, and having the confidence to get up and somewhat engage a room with what I'm talking. I've still got a lot to develop in that, but I think it's also a big part of my job is bringing groups of people together that are a lot more senior than me, have a lot more experience in world and in business than I do, but being able to communicate and speak and bring these people together in a way, even though, as I say, they are a lot more senior than me, but being able to do it in a way that means that they enjoy meeting their senior peers. I hope. But it's not something that's easy to do, but is something where you can, if I look at when we first met, Adil, and you come into the company that we worked in, it's certainly not something I would have been able to do with my skill set back then. So I guess, the ability to connect senior leaders as I do at the company that I'm working at now, doing it confidently and in a way that's genuinely valuable for them, is something that is proving to be a better part of what I'm doing in my career at the moment.
That's so good to hear. It's so good to hear, because I remember you at the early stages of your journey. And one thing I really sincerely loved about you, Luke, is whatever I used to tell you, you used to apply it. You used to listen and apply. And you'll say, well, you'd had questions around particular things, and I said, look, just trust the process, follow it through, and then all of a sudden you started yielding these results, which were great. And so you've always had that discipline, that sort of hunter, go-getter mentality. And even now, look, there's no doubt, I have absolutely no reservations. I know you're going to be absolutely super successful, above and beyond what you're currently doing now as well. And you're doing a fantastic job. Another question that came to mind, Luke, was what's something you can do now that used to really terrify you at the early stages of your career?
Well, I think we discussed it earlier, but probably the ability to phone someone, as you said, it's in sales and in business development, which is still sort of the world that I'm in now. Have the confidence to pick up the phone and have that direct conversation and more be able to have get through perhaps uncomfortable moments, sort of slightly more awkward conversations that you have to have when you're someone in sales, to have the confidence to ask a direct question without having to try and explain yourself. And you know how it is if you say the price of something, or you want to ring someone and go, I would like to ask you this question, and be direct. And actually a lot of people, especially with the seniority of the level of seniority of person that I reach out to and work with now, they are very time poor, and they don't need all the fluffy stuff. Sometimes they just get to the point, ask me what you want to ask me, and I'll let you know if that's something that I want to talk about. So having the confidence to be able to ask direct questions in the right way and get the response you're looking for without feeling like you need to kind of explain yourself or justify yourself is a really important skill that certainly I would have struggled a lot with in the early stages of my career.
It's that old the telephone, right? Again, it's that old telephone. It strikes fear in everyone's hearts, and I think it's a habit, right? If you do it every day, you just get better and better. And I shared this in the previous podcast. It's your level of fear. The more you do something, the better you get. I remember when I first started driving, I was petrified, because you got to look over your shoulder. Every move you do has to be exaggerated. You got to check your mirror about 5 times, to the point where once you've passed and you do it on a regular basis, you don't even think. You get into your car, you put your seatbelt on without thinking, you check your mirrors without thinking, you drive in the direction you want to go, 1 hand, 2 hands on the wheel, what have you. But the point is that you do it without thinking, because it's programmed into your subconscious. It's the same thing with calling. The more you call, the better you get, the more results you'll yield. And even today, I've built my whole career on cold calling, right? And so I had that initial fear, but the more I did it, the better I got. The more objections I sort of handled, the more leads I got, and the more targets I smashed, the more records I broke. So yeah, it's that old fear of the telephone. The more you do it, the better you get, I promise you. All right, so as we look to wrap up, Luke, the final question for you, sir, is what's the most important habit a new seller can build from day one? And what advice would you give them?
Probably picking a process, having a plan, an outreach plan, and sticking to it. I'm sure we're all guilty of coming up with a plan of how what sector am I going to go after? What's the messaging going to be? How am I going to reach out to these people? And yeah, I'd say taking that extra step to be properly prepared over however many weeks or months you want to target a particular group of people or companies, and then sticking to that, because I think having any kind of outreach plan, a combination of emails or phone calls, of LinkedIn, whatever it might be, that is thought through and considered, goes a lot further than just sporadic doing things ad hoc day by day as you might feel like doing it, trying to put as much structure in as possible, is definitely important to keeping yourself organized. And then, as you say, brings in that kind of discipline and knowing what you're going to do at the start of the day rather than trying to figure it out when you come and sit in your desk is pretty invaluable, I would say.
Yeah, and spray and pray is no strategy, right? It's a recipe for disaster. And I like how you're going about structuring your day, your thoughts on structuring your day. Timeless advice for any young graduate or any solopreneur, entrepreneur, one-man band type of business who's looking to learn how to sell and get those high tickets coming through. Okay, look, folks, that's a wrap on today's episode of Born to Sell. Huge thank you, Luke, for joining me on the podcast today and sharing your journey from stepping into sales by sort of chance and becoming the confident, capable professional that you are today. Now, Luke's story is a reminder that everyone starts somewhere, and with the right mindset and support and growth, you can go wherever the world will take you. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you follow and subscribe on the socials, leave a review, share it with someone who's just getting started in the field of sales and someone who may need that extra push. Thanks for listening. And remember, you weren't made to work, you were born to sell. Until next time, thank you very much. Until the next episode on Born to Sell.